Great teachers, you talked about a few of them. I think the crucial reason why students should target great colleges. I think brand names matter, and especially as we are going towards uh, more of these AI-led world, I think brand names of the colleges may matter less than what you really learn, and hence teachers really, really matter. So as you are thinking about college, as you are do your research about what professors are in different universities, what are they teaching, what are students talking about them, right? What are their students who passed out talking about them? I think that's really, really important. That's a great point you bring up, Angela. Um,
Absolutely.
but many students, especially those in middle school or high school, are unsure about what major to take in college, right? I mean, they're kids. So what career to target for themselves? And there is so much ambiguity. How did you walk through this ambiguity, you as a mom, with your twins very recently in the last few years?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, first, I think it's perfectly normal. I think it's more the norm to maybe not know exactly what you want to major or target in high school than knowing precisely. At least just from my observations. Even for myself, I thought I wanted to do architecture when I was in high school. And so, it was a trial and error of getting into college and, discovering that, oh, gee, like I don't really like, art critique in an architecture class. I really do love the objectivity in a subject. And so, that's kind of through trial and error, I learned what I don't like. And then that's how I kind of got into the engineering school at Berkeley. I think, similarly for my teens, I think the parents' job, I think one of the big parents' job is really just supporting your kids and exploring who they are, what they like, what they don't like. So, one of the things I did is really just encouraging them to try as many things early on, because it just takes a lot of trial and error to discover what you like and what you don't like. It's a process. And so I think it's perfectly normal to not know at this point in high school what it is that you want to do. I feel like as long as you kind of have the right zip code, like going into college, that's success. And then you can, once you get to college, great place for exploration and discovery. And you can kind of, really hone in on the neighborhood and eventually the house, the street, you want to be in.
Yeah, I love that. Like, as long as you know the zip code, right? So some sense of what are you good at, what do you like, what do you dislike, having that, and based on that, kind of tell your story to colleges and do. But then, yes, many colleges in most majors give you option to explore. Other than there are some direct to major things these days because of high demand, which is holding that back.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, even as adults, right? Like, we can often have many different career chapters. So, I think it's totally okay to learn some new information and then, make a change, make an informed change. So, going into college with the best sense of how you know yourself, with the best zip code that but if you get there and learn some new information and decide you want to get to another zip code, I think most of the time, most colleges do understand that, college kids are still, kids, that there's room for change. So
Totally.
Absolutely. In fact, some colleges, Angela, actually have an undecided major that you can apply to.
Yeah.
Go in totally undecided, and that's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong. One thing that I keep telling most of our customers is that the American schooling system is very, very forgiving when it comes to study, right? Like Vineet, I, Pallavi, we all came from Indian schooling system where you were part of a herd. It's almost like a cohort kind of, right? So you just kept going in that cohort blinded and go all the way. And that's kind of where you end up, Whereas
Yep.
here, it's like, I know of kids who basically went in with a CS major and switched to
Mhm.
ed, and vice versa. And that's
Yep.
absolutely fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that might be part of a decision criteria in choosing colleges, right? There are some colleges that do really want you to declare and stick with a major. Plenty don't, like plenty are like, okay, like you don't have to declare until the end of your sophomore year. In fact, we encourage you to explore. So, again, it depends, right? Like there are some kids in high school, the lucky few who's like, yeah, I know this is like my passion, like this is it. And then, then there's the type of school for them. Or for others, if you're like, well, I think I kind of know the zip code, maybe I might want to change my mind, then you might want to pick a schools that have more of those, range of flexibility, if you will.
True. So exploration is important, but there are also, as I said, a percentage of kids who are like, maybe engineering is for me or business is for me. And let's talk about the zip code of business, right? Many kids are like, I love the world of business. It has more ambiguity and it has so many subfields in it. So they want to major in business, but it's very broad, right? So you as a professional who's been through this many years,
Yeah.
tell us our audience, what are the different major and career options the students have if they want business as their track in college?
Yeah. I think in most colleges you have the call it the more standard flavors of a bachelor of arts, probably in business. But there are a lot of adjacent majors, if you will. I think economics is one that's often a really popular one, really close to business. The one that I do want to talk about is what I know, industrial engineering operations research. For me, I like to think about it as like it's kind of a business degree for the engineering minded. The curriculum is a lot of basic science, a lot of math, probability, statistics, optimization, stochastic models, a little bit of computer science, a little bit of organizational behavior. So got a lot of well-rounded stuff thrown into it as well. I like to give a plug because I really do think it's a great foundation for tackling a lot of problems with data, with analysis, with systems thinking. So with industrial engineering, actually the definition of it, it's to find the most effective and efficient way to use factors of production, whether that is machines, people, data, energy, to provide a product or service. So with that, there are a lot of job paths afterwards. Many of my peers did go into the traditional things like a manufacturing engineer, and manufacturing is making a comeback to the country. Supply chain analyst. A lot of them went into being a data or business analyst, and you have that title almost at like any company. Certainly a good share went into management consulting and investment banking. That's kind of the path I took as well. And many do get a graduate degree. MBA is a popular graduate choice. So I think, if I like to think, if it's someone who like really loves like the math and the sciences, but aren't sure like engineering, like a core engineering degree is what they want. I think industrial engineering is actually quite a flexible but still technical degree to give you a lot of option value for after your undergrad.
Perfect. Awesome. So I just want to flip the coin a little bit, right? So we've been hearing a lot about your thinking, and thank you so much for sharing so openly. And like I was actually mentioning this in the chat, like, my God, you're like amazingly coherent when it comes to speaking. It's unbelievable. So the flip side of that is I want to understand a little bit about like, how your twins went through their individual journeys, right? So if I were to put the question and ask them if they were there in this call, I would love to have them sometime, is if I ask them like, in your high school journey leading up to college, what surprised you the most? What was your experience like? What do you think would be the answers to those questions? Because I'm pretty sure like a lot of kids in this call are actually grappling with very similar questions, like, are surprised or are scared, concerned. So there's a lot of like that happening. So it would be nice to hear your thought process of how your kids went through that and how you managed it for them.
Yeah, I think the single biggest surprise when you ask is they would never have expected to get into Stanford. I mean, I think partly like we should just all recognize that, hey, the probability, it's a lot of a lottery. There's a lot of probability, uncertainty, chance involved. But with that said, there's a lot you could do to just, kind of maximize your probability, if you will. That probably was more mom's job thinking about it. For them, they were much like a lot of probably, kids of parents on this call, really kind of focused on doing classes on the schoolwork and the academics. I'll just kind of share a little bit of the story of them. They're actually quite different, and it's interesting, the whole nature versus nurture thing, right? I certainly gave them like the same opportunities, like offer them to take dance classes, offer them to, take swimming lessons, offer the same opportunities, but somehow, they ended up, finding their strengths in quite different places. So twin one is probably like a lot of kids on this call, the parents are on this call. She's more of your classical STEM kid, the type that would spend, 20 plus hours a week in robotics club kind of kid. She loves tinkering with dad in the garage. She's also a figure skater, something she discovered early on, and we just kind of really encourage her to stick with it. Twin two is kind of the opposite. Despite taking the, same advanced math classes, she decided she really just loves the arts and humanities. So she's the type of kids that would spend 20 hours a week on her own, creating arts, learning about new medium, whether it's oil paint or carving. And, she likes to read a variety of deep, thoughtful books, and she probably has an opinion on, any current event. And she decided she's majored in kind of a field in jumping. That's kind of her thing. She's a student athlete. So they turn out really different. And I think, again, I like to underscore, so much as them. I think my job was really on just giving them different opportunities to try, so they kind of figure out what are the things that they're going to stick with through the high school years. Because as you know, at some point, you do want to kind of pick a few areas and go deep in, so that when it's time to tell college who you are, you can kind of paint a narrative that makes sense, that's kind of backed by like, oh, okay, yeah, I can see the type of person that you are. Lots of exploration. I don't think they're entering into college exactly knowing what they want, and they love that they don't have to declare majors until their sophomore year.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the biggest advantage that you have, at least in private and small colleges, is they give you that level of freedom to explore. Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I have I think it is not going back to you, but more like, so you're now leading marketing for Microsoft Copilot, right? It's one of the most popular AI product that we have today. Satya branded it, and then it's been taking off. So high schoolers, and parents of high schoolers are very watching out with a very concerned eye about what AI is coming and how it's going to change the landscape of the world in terms of employment, what is a sustainable job, what is not going to be a sustainable job, and how can college prepare you and kind of keep you on your toes when it comes to your future. So what would you tell such parents and kids on this call, how do they prepare themselves for the next, 6 years of AI revolution?
Yeah. I think I'll start with mindset. I think having that growth and resilient mindset, building that in your teams, might be the single most important thing. As you're saying, AI is here and it is starting to change how we do our jobs, and maybe what job definitions are, and there's really no crystal ball of where that's going to take us. I think the only thing we know is that jobs probably not going to stay the way they are today. As a marketer, even over the last 6 months, I'm using a lot of Gen AI for copy editing, doing first round research for business plans that I'm making in a new market that I don't know a lot about. My peers are using a lot of agents to automate website updates. So all we know for sure is that the way we do our job is in a few years is probably not going to be the way we do it today. And so I think having that resilient mindset of being prepared for learning new skills, learning new job responsibilities, possibly, making career pivots, right? I think that's going to be the most important thing. And then I think secondly, then it's the skill to learn how to learn. And I think this is where college is going to be great. Again, because, the average employee is probably going to change jobs a lot. They're going to need to learn things quickly. And I think it is a skill on its own to learn how to learn a new subject faster. And so college is a great place where, I think encourage your teens to take a variety of different classes, right? Even in subject areas that, might not be like take a philosophy class, even if it's, not exactly directly related to engineering, not only because it's helpful, it'll help you make great engineering decisions, but also because maybe it stretches your mind, another part of your brain, to learn a different subject. And I think human-centric skills, I think, are still going to be really important. So, the ability to communicate clearly, collaborate well with others. I think you're going to need that, whether, you continue to have human teammates or you're going to have, AI teammates. And lastly, I think, kids are doing this without us saying it. It's like make AI part of their everyday, make AI part of, how they learn. It's certainly really great at tutoring and challenging, different ways of thinking. It'll be really interesting to see where this takes us. I'm so curious. Vineet and Gopi, like given you guys are in the technical world, what trends are you seeing of how AI is changing, your profession?
You want to take that first, Vineet, and I can.
You go.
All right. So you had mentioned earlier about industrial engineering and supply chain, right? So supply chain. So that's kind of like, the two places where like I'm using AI in my job. One is future forward, where we are using it to be like, kind of this evaluator, which is very, very objective in nature and doesn't get like, subjective information or doesn't like make mistakes because kids' lives is too much to basically stake on mistakes, right? So that is one. And then the other one is like, I'm also a chief scientist of AI at Augur, where I'm literally building the next agentic supply chain, right? So literally like, how do a product get from a farm all the way to your table, like that entire supply chain path? How can you actually drive it using agents and data, right? And can it get there faster? Can it get there cheaper? Like what are the different options? How quickly can you optimize stuff, right? So that's kind of like how, so you're right, every industry is kind of like, embracing AI. It is just it's a starting point. It's not necessarily the end goal. And the other thing that I would say that we are seeing as a side signal is just from this group of parents and like all of our students, we are seeing a huge shift. I don't know why it is, but a lot of people are coming in with pre-med as like, I want to go be a doctor, right? I don't know whether that is like a direct impact, whether I'm basically doing causation and correlation, but there seems to be like a shift towards like, human body biology is going to be a long time before it's going to get AI-fied. So we are not in the matrix yet. So that's kind of like, where things are going. So anything to add, Vineet?
Yeah. In fact, I'll double click on what we are doing and not only seeing in future forward. One, we are seeing that, a lot of pre-med interest, yes. But we're also seeing questions and a lot of questions from the audience and parents here saying that, is computer science relevant anymore in the world of AI if Cursor and so many other vibe coding tools are going to do. So one is concerns and questions. Other, the families that we work with in Future Forward, and the product that we have built, which is not live for everybody, but is coming in July for everybody in the market. But those who are our customers are already using it. They are able to see that AI is much more than ChatGPT.
Mm-hmm.
It is not something that, oh, you did something and you created a bag of words, and those bag of words now can be called plagiarism because that's what ChatGPT started with and it started using. It has already in the last 18 months come leaps and bounds, where even the tool that we have, called it vidIQ, that does not write anything for you, but it helps you a lot. And parents are seeing that, students are seeing that. So we're seeing that feedback real time, almost on a daily basis. And that has been very validating for Gopi and I as we are building, and why, in fact, we are accelerating its launch in July for every family. That's super. Awesome. Gopi, I'm sure you have more things to noodle Angela on.
Sure, absolutely. So I want to quickly ask, a question on what advice would you give to students about to best utilize their high school journey, right? So high school is about 4 years. By the time they apply, it's 3 years, because really 12th grade really doesn't count, right? Mm-hmm. You're in your early application cycle. Your school starts in September. By October, you already applied to the most schools that you're going to apply to. REA, ED, all of that stuff is done. So how to best utilize this period of high school in a way to set yourself up for success?
Yeah. I would say try as many things as you can. And it's not just the 7 classes in the day, right? I know the high school that my kids go to, gosh, the list of clubs, I think there's got to be at least 50 plus. They're just a club for everything. And so I mentioned that because it's a really low cost way to try something. And even if you just try it for a month and you discover that, nope, I don't like it, that's great. But that's such a low cost, fast way to try things. And high school goes by fast, so I'm sure Gopi and Vineet, you guys as college counselors will be coaching the students on how to kind of pace yourself, in terms of the progression of APs and when you take the standardized testing and pacing yourself, so you do some interesting things in the summer that accrues to the story, your major and who you are, presenting yourself to college. And then I'd say once you get to college, that's another great, there's just no better place to discover even more. I mean, you have probably every profession, right? Co-located in the same place. All these different departments, they all at any given weeks are probably, having interesting people to come to give talks. And so one, actually, the thing when I do interview high school students and they always ask, what's the one tip? I would be go to as many talks as you can, an hour of your time to learn about a new profession or a new subject. Is a super high ROI way to figure out whether you have interest or not. And then I also encourage college students to really talk to and build relationships with professors and even grad students. I know I didn't do enough of it, so I always look back. It's that's the thing I would tell myself. There's just not a better time for people to actually want to talk to you. They all want to help you. And so just take advantage of that when you're there.
Yeah, cool. So build connections, explore a lot, and find low cost way to basically cover a lot of surface area.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's amazing. That's actually, you just summarized it very quickly. That's awesome. Cool.
We take some of the questions. So Timish has asked 2 different questions. Why don't we start with those, and then I have 3 more questions, from the submitted question that we got.
Sure. So looking at Timish's question, just to rehash for people who are on the phone, How are colleges and universities using AI for admission process, or how to stand out? So he gave me two options, so I can choose whichever question I want. So I'm going to choose like how to stand out, right? No, I'm just kidding. I answered both of them. But how to stand out, it's basically, you don't need to try to stand out. That's kind of what like Angela has been telling us, right? What made her kids, her twins, like stand out was the fact that they were themselves, right? The uniqueness is already there in you, in your student. They've just not found it out yet. They've not discovered it. And this high school journey where you're going to go and explore a wide range of activities, you're going to figure out what you're good at, what you're not, what's passionate, and you're going to basically build yourself up during that high school. And that build up is going to make you unique. And the experiences that you go through as part of that build up in 4 years is what's going to make you stand out, right? You don't actually want to be a cookie cutter resume. You don't want to be somebody who basically says, I did 20 hours of robotics. I exactly did like, 12 APs. I basically did this Polygen's summer science program. I basically interned at this XYZ IT company. So if you basically say, oh, one kid did all of these things and got into Stanford, so I'm going to just copy paste that over the next 3 years and I'm going to get into Stanford. No, the kid got into Stanford because they had their own experiences. What you're seeing on the resume is an outcome of this experience. It's an output. That really doesn't matter. It is how they allowed those experiences to change them materially, how their thought process evolved, how they evolved as a person. So when you take all of those things and put it together, that's what makes them stand out. And so, that is the journey we want to build.
Yeah. And so going to summarize, it's not that the kid does not have to do anything. Let's be also, that's what we are saying. What we are saying is there is uniqueness in your kid. And if you have 2 kids, 3 kids, there is uniqueness in each kid. That needs to be brought out. And that needs to be, the experiences that they go through, as Angela was talking about, will shape their uniqueness to come out and speak for itself. That is important, which will require beyond school n number of hours per week, consistently for 2 to 3 to 4 years. Yes, that is definitely required. Make no mistake. But the uniqueness is in your child, and at least that's how we do at Future Forward. That is the one. There is no cookie cutter, but here's a template and you do that.
Yeah. And I'll quickly answer the question. Colleges are starting to use AI more and more, but they're using it to actually detect AI use. So they're basically trying to see whether they can optimize their own processes by inculcating AI into objectivity, right? So for example, if an application is incomplete, can the AI immediately flag and say that this application is incomplete so that they could basically kick off their, get that information process, right? So they're basically trying to do things that allows them to scale better because the sheer volume of applications coming to each college is insanely high. Right, so that is kind of where they are in terms of application process. Once you get into college, there is a lot more areas where AI has started infiltrating in. Professors are starting to use it for evaluating the students' work. AI is integrated into programming competitions and hackathons. So there's a bunch of stuff that's happening. Medical facilities are starting to use AI for evaluation purposes, and so on and so forth. So that is like a separate ballgame altogether.
Yeah.
Then Timish also has one more question. Vineet, maybe you can take this.
Yeah, I'll take this question. Timish, it's a very pertinent question. I think it's very important for us to not take going to college as a transactional thing. Go to college, get a job, that's it. College to career is not about that. When you get to good colleges, Angela talked about great professors. She named professors, why and what impact they made on her and how they shaped her career choices. It's the ecosystem. It's the people you meet. It's the peers that you will meet. That is what will shape your career, right? If you go to great colleges where you meet great kids who push themselves, who push their talents, they will also push you further out. If you as a kid, that is why it matters. So it's less about the brand. The brand of the college is built by the kids and professors and the research that they produce and what they go on to do. The brand is not just born with hey, here is a brand, let us all go. Doesn't happen, right? Many private colleges are coming up every day. So that is the important thing for us as parents to keep in mind and make sure we relay that to our kids also. So that answers. Okay, I have a few more questions, and Angela and Gopi, both of you should definitely chime in on these. First are, we talked about what should kids do in high school and all that, but parents are asking, what are some suggestions you can give for students in elementary schools that ignites their interest in STEM? And given that both of you, at least undergrad, was STEM, what would be your advice?
Yeah, I'll
Angela,
start. I remember my kids doing, I think, Lego. Like in robotics, for example, they're like I don't know, there's like an elementary version of it. I think they use Legos. So there are definitely like after school clubs. And I think I just, in the summer camps, I just really try to encourage a mix of many different things. I think we had tried everything from like architecture camps, to like, space exploration. And, when they're little kids, they think all of it is fun. And so it's such a fun way to see if something would spark with them.
Cool. I'll just add to that with a couple of examples, right? So there are many ways by which you can actually bring in like STEM into the thought process of your kids. Don't try to push them, but rather expose them to it. So one of the things that I did for my son when he was, I think it was like third grade or maybe even second grade, is basically there's this thing called pine wood derby, right? So you basically take a simple block of pine wood, and there is basically a gravity ramp, and you build a car on top of that with like 4 wheels, and you put graphite for reducing friction. You basically talk about center of gravity. You push the CG up. There's a lot of like physics and learning over there. And we basically ended up doing it for 3 years in a row. And the amount of physics that he learned from it basically came all the way till his high school. Like his AP Physics 1, he used to go and tell me like, Dad, you remember we talked about this momentum stuff? That basically I'm learning about it now, right? He didn't understand the concept of like the equations, but he understood the concept so well. Similarly, the other thing that I think my wife would disagree with this, but when my kid was like 4 years old, I took him to the Transformers movie, right? Pretty brutal, gory, a lot of oil and shelling. But anyway, that was another thing. So I exposed him to technology at like different levels.
So, I mean, you guys know now, right? You should take Gopi's advice, but selective. 99% is good. 1% you have to, wear your parents' hat. I'm just kidding. Okay. This is a very tactical question. And, I'd love the answer from the two of you. Is there an ideal number of APs one must take for Stanford or getting into UCs before 11th grade?
Okay, I can start with this one, Angela, and you can add to it later. So here's the thing: don't look at AP as something that you collect, right? An AP basically tells 2 things. One is it shows that you are taking classes at a college level, right? It basically shows the colleges that this person is ready for advanced learning, and so taking AP courses sends the signal to them. The second one that it does is it allows you to actually waive a bunch of courses after you join college. So technically it's kind of like a money saving gig, but effectively once you go to college, there are certain colleges that waive certain courses if you achieved a level of mastery in those AP exams. And if you achieve that, then you can waive those courses physics or Spanish and whatever other things. And you can accelerate your bachelor's journey by maybe 1 or 2 quarters or 1 or 2 semesters, right? So the second part of it is out of the way. But the first part of it is what you need to focus on. Just because your school offers 20 APs doesn't mean you hit all 20 APs. The APs kind of need to be something that genuinely are interesting to you, and it paints into your overall story of what is it that you're looking for in your high school. So this goes back to what Angela was saying, right? Explore, and then you will figure out what you like, and the areas that are interesting to you, yeah, go advanced in them. There's nothing wrong with it, right? So there is no template of you take 12 APs and you basically are competitive for Stanford. There's nothing like that, right? I know kids who basically didn't take any APs and got into UPenn. Right, our own student took no APs and got into UPenn this year. So that being the case, there is no rhyme or reason. It comes down to each individual. Anything to add, Angela?
Yeah, I agree. really depends. Certainly you guys have way more data points than me, but I recall interviewing some students who might have told me that they literally took every AP available, and obviously they didn't get in, right? So it's one thing, and it really depends on the individual. As a parent, I think, you're trying to encourage your student I try to encourage my kids to challenge themselves. AP classes are rigorous and whatnot, but also balancing that with like the whole mental health and like, what else do they want to do in that year? Like, where else do they want to spend their time in, right? Maybe there's another passion that they would much rather spend, and it would be worthy spending that time in there. So yeah, it really, really depends. So.
Awesome. Cool. Vineet, one for you and Angela as well. What if I don't get admitted to an Ivy League? What should I do to ensure I'm still successful in my career? This is an amazing question. So whichever parent asked this question, thank you so much, parent or student. They said, what if I don't? So I'm assuming this is a student.
Okay, I'll take a crack at it, and Angela, please chime in. So number one, again, thanks to Timish for almost pre-staging this question, because Ivy Leagues, what are Ivy Leagues, right? A set of 6 to 8 colleges which form a sports league. An Ivy League was a sports league. For most of the colleges started on the East Coast, because the immigration to US was happening from Europe. There's a whole lot of history. Of course, since they started almost 300 years back, 250 years back, they established, many of them did good work, and their names were established. If you go to them, will you be successful? I don't know what the probability there is. It'll be more towards more than 50%, just because just getting into them means you have become a kind of a person who does diligence, hard work, is more disciplined, can think deeply, is intellectually curious, etc. Now, those 5 things that I talked about matter more than the brand of the college. And I'll give you like real examples. In fact, a friend of mine was telling last week, he works at Meta, another large company in this area, as well as in Bay Area. There was a person, very recent graduate, software engineer, in their cab. They were going to dinner, and everybody was like, okay, I'm from this college, I'm from that college. This is like, geez, I don't even want to tell my college's name. I was like, why? I said, no, because it's not a big name. It's a small public college somewhere in a state, but it didn't matter. It is, amazing engineer, sharing the same space, sharing the same, success in that large company. So it is not that if you are not in Ivy League, you will have a horrible career. Let's please debunk that. It puts a lot of pressure on our kids. What is more important is to put what is it that the kids' goal is, and the family's goal overall is for a happy life, happy career, and hence targeted colleges. The college list building itself is an art and something that we deeply work with folks that work with Future Forward, because it is important. It is not about, top 8 Ivy League colleges, let's go. In fact, there's a reason why Gopi and I did not put the name Ivy in Future Forward, right? Because there is much more to life from college to career than Ivy. That's definitely my response on those 4 or 5 things. But Angela and Gopi, please feel free to add.
Yeah, I want to chime in because even though this whole conversation is about, selective colleges, primarily we've been talking about selective colleges, but I do want to say as a parent, first and foremost, college choice is not the be all end all at all. I remember reading a study from the Stanford's Challenge Success Initiative. It's part of their grad school of education. They have proven that attending a more selective college actually doesn't reliably predict better life outcomes, especially over the long term. Has a literal relationship to, with job satisfaction or overall well-being. What they actually found, the most important predictors for long-term success were individual characteristics like ambition and engagement. So again, it's very much like in the individual, inside, you, inside your kids already. And I just want to emphasize again, where you go to college, yeah, like what Vineet said, does not matter that much over the long term. And so we should just all kind of take a deep breath that it'll be okay. So.
Super. I would say, so summarizing, be intellectually curious is one thing that you can tell your kids. Other, what are known as executive management skills in terms of time management and being diligent and all that, that will see them far, whichever college they go to. Okay. Some of us geek heads have talked a lot. We also have Pallavi among us. She's our marketing director at Future Forward, who's not an engineer. And I would want Pallavi to quiz Angela on something which is less about engineering and more about other things that is on her mind. Pallavi.
Yeah, I have to say, what a high bandwidth conversation so far. And thank you, the three of you, for sharing your insights. Angela, I literally loved your general zip code metaphor. Knowing the general direction is often enough to start taking meaningful steps towards your life. Now, building on that idea of exploration and not boxing yourself in, a lot of students are interested in tech, but assume that if they are not majoring in computer science or engineering, they are automatically out of the running. So from your perspective, is it realistic to break into tech without a STEM degree?
Yeah, well, first it depends on the definition, right? There are, tech roles, technical roles, and then there's tech industry.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll talk about like kind of tech industry first, the companies in that sector. So it goes without saying, besides, people, you need people building those technical products, building the software. Those companies also need marketers, sellers, finance people, HR people, people in all kind of non-technical functions to bring that technical product to the end users. So there are a lot of roles in the tech industry, which, obviously just do not require a technical degree. And especially like for me, when I look around marketing, I think actually having an engineering degree is more an exception than the norm. I find it beneficial for the problem solving skills and all of that instilled in me, but I'm more the exception than the norm. And I want to underscore the point that Vineet and Gopi was saying. I think the key is just having that intellectual curiosity and having the skills, the ability to learn enough about a product, technical product, so that you just want enough context to be able to do, whether it is marketing or financial planning, well in the context of the tech product or business that you're working in. So absolutely yes. And I think even for technical roles, I mean, look, when I talked about career pivots, I have certainly seen others who have maybe perhaps discovered the passion for going into computer science later on in life. And yes, there are, ways, boot camps to do that. And again, I think it goes back to that personal ambition and grit, right? Like if you have it in you and you discover a new interest, I feel like you would have the confidence to be able to pursue it.
Very true. I've seen a lot of LinkedIn profiles. I was surprised to see that a person who was a doctor, she changed her career and pivoted to become, engineer. And I was totally surprised at that. But such a refreshing perspective. I love how you made the distinction. You said that technical roles are different and the tech industry is different. And the emphasis on curiosity and understanding the product, it really reframes what success is in tech industry. So speaking of students navigating these paths, as a parent, you've clearly thought deeply about how to guide your kids and young people through career decisions. How did you strike the balance between guiding your kids towards strong career choices and giving them the space to decide for themselves?
Yeah, I learned a hard lesson at some point that kids eventually become their own beings, have their own minds, have their own agency, It means there is literally only so much control I can have over what they do or what they don't do. So at some point I learned that and I made peace with that. And but we know, with that said, I do admit I drove a lot of the multi-year college application process, if you will. And I think it's great to, have professionals like Gopi and Vineet. It's a multi-year project, and, teens are still developing their executive functioning skills, right? And so, both my husband and I felt like, okay, well, we really want to kind of lean in to do it together, partly to kind of just model how to do this and how to eventually make big decisions and choices. So I think we are pretty involved. We're pretty involved in, planning their courses and helping them discover, making college lists, et cetera, et cetera. And when it came to decision-making time, we did break out that, decision analysis framework. We had our criteria, we, made spreadsheets, just kind of clearly enumerating what's important to each of them and how the colleges, how their final choices differ on those dimensions. Again, just to kind of help them model, I hope, to help model and say, okay, well, this is kind of how you think through making big decisions. And maybe the last of it is also like, I think through all of this, we are, as parents, we're trying to, set up successful, healthy kids being able to go out on their own and healthy in kind of every sense of the word, not just physical, but just kind of mentally as well. So we really try to work on, encouraging them to think of themselves, not just as, which college to go to or what grades. And I know it's hard because in high school, that's what, a lot of kids talk about, right? Their peers, but we really try to kind of encourage that more healthy sense of self.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely healthy nudges. And overall, we have to keep in mind that, our kids need to be happier and, be also successful in their lives. And thank you so much for answering the questions. Your perspective on exploration, planning, and keeping a balanced mindset is incredibly. Am I audible?
Yeah, good.
Oh, okay. I thought I was stuck. Keeping a balanced mindset is definitely grounding, at least, for the parents who are here and myself as well. You've given so many practical key takeaways for students, parents, mentors, and me. And Vineet, do you want to jump in and take it from here? I don't have any questions yet.
Yeah, Gopi, if you want to answer Sanvi's question.
That's a super question. So I just wanted to first thank her for asking it. So the question is, do you think going into something like a STEM major, which makes more money, is more important than going into a major you like? Okay, so Sanvi, thank you for asking that. And you're talking to people in this chat. Vineet is an engineer, okay? Started out as an engineer. I started out as an aerospace engineer. I work in AI now. Right? Eventually, all of us are going to be working for AI. That's a different thing. But Angela started out in industrial, and now she's basically leading marketing, right? Every one of us on this call basically has had pivots in our career that has led us to where we are, and we've enjoyed every pivot and we've enjoyed every part of the journey. So do not try to optimize for money. Money is an outcome that will happen over time. Optimize for happiness, right? Optimize for what you enjoy doing. And if you enjoy doing something really well, money will always come over time. Like, do not try to optimize for that. Your first job out of college probably is going to be a $120,000 job, right? Okay, so big deal. When you are 45, you're probably going to be working for a $500,000 job. So does the 120 to 80 really matter out of college? It doesn't. And I guarantee you, you're not going to be doing the same job when you get out of college as you do when you are 40 years old. It's not going to be the same, because the industry would have changed, the technologies would have changed, the market would have changed, what the products need to be built would have changed. Everything has changed. The problem space would have changed, right? That's kind of what is happening with us with AI right now, and all of us are adapting to it. There will be 3 or 4 more revolutions by the time this happens in another 40 years. So you just need to be adaptable to those revolutions and build your career around it, rather than trying to target a specific aspect of your career. Hope that makes sense.
Yep, because if you're not doing it from a position of passion, you will not be able to sustain it. Very, very important, Sanvi, and important for all kids and parents to understand. So do not get pressured into going into engineering or medicine and others just because possibly there is more money there. If you do not do well there, there will be no money even there, right? Very, very important. Okay, we are wrapping up. Thank you all for joining. How the Future Forward program works. We have admission strategy sessions to do a lot of this questions that came today as Gopi and I tackle them with families. But feel free to contact us, go to our website, WhatsApp us, whatever works for you. If you think there is some help that you need, that we can get involved with. Thank you again for an engaging conversation. We'll be back with another series episode of College to Career very soon.
Angela, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. This has been a really fun conversation. So hope you all took a little bit of something away. So thank you.
Super. Thank you.
Bye.